in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the Islam paper as part of the Route A series for religious studies according to Eduqas. Now, some things to take note of is that firstly, it's 60 marks and the paper is 1 hour. So that works out about roughly to, well, not roughly, exactly to a mark a minute. There is no spag in this paper. And we'll talk about the use of keywords, but there's no spag in this paper. So there's no need to worry about that. And just a reminder that it's going to be broken down into two, well, they say questions, but two sections. Okay, section 1 is beliefs and teachings, and section 2 is practices. Okay, so you're looking at roughly about 30 minutes per section. So I'm going to look at breaking this down as I walk through the exam. I'm not going to go into too much detail about so much the questions themselves, more so about the structure of the Islam paper, how to approach it, and some key things to be mindful of. So we're going to start off with my favorite piece of advice, which is, in terms of the approach, start off with the 15 markers first. Why? Because they typically, not typically, they account for 50% or just over of the exam. And we're going to look at structuring and planning the assessment question, and we'll talk about bulb. So bulb is the easiest way to sort of narrow down exactly what it is that you need to write about for your 50-mark question. So here we've got Adam is the most important prophet in Islam. So what you want to do is bulb stands for box, underline, and look back. Okay, so box, underline, and then look back. What we want to box is the command word. So this here is telling us to discuss the statement, making sure that we've considered more than one point of view. Now, this is incredibly important because if you don't consider more than one point of view, you get capped at 3 marks out of 15. Doesn't matter if you get all 3 paragraphs plus a nice conclusion. If in this case they are only about Adam being the most important prophet, you only get 3 marks. So we've boxed off the command word. Next, we're looking at underlining. So here we're underlining the key terms. So here it would be Adam and being the most important prophet in Islam. Okay. Now, what you usually want for a 15-mark answer is, in terms of the structure of your short essay, is 3 paragraphs. Okay. So paragraph 1, and you can always plan it like at the top here. I often see students plan it at the top here, which I think is good. So Adam here. The obvious one in Islam would be Muhammad. And then you have your choice of either Isa, Ibrahim, Moses, or Musa, or Dawood. Okay, any of them is fine. So Adam, Muhammad, and then any one of these 3. Okay, in terms of the structure for one paragraph, the way that we teach it is known as what, how, why 1, why 2. The what is, in this case, what is the belief? So what is the belief that you're referring to here? In this case, it will be what is the belief in Adam? And then how, and this would typically be a reference to, or how can you prove this? So this would usually be a reference to a source of wisdom and authority. Usually for, especially the belief section, this will be the Quran. I always forget where the apostrophe goes. We're going to go, no, that doesn't look right. No, that definitely doesn't look right. There we go. Quran or Hadiths. Okay, and then why 1? When we talk about the source of wisdom and authority, we're explaining why that particular thing is important. So why is it important? Explain the importance or relevance or meaning as well. Any one of those 3 is usually quite good. So explaining the importance, the relevance, or the meaning of this particular source of wisdom. And then why 2, your that is where you are coming up with just sort of judgments. So, evaluation, sorry. So you're evaluating here. Okay, and that's basically, you're arguing in a sentence, what is the strength or weakness of an argument. Easy as. Okay, so what, how, why, one, why, two. And you want that, ideally, for both 50 markers. Ideally, you want 3 paragraphs plus the conclusion. Okay, so 1 paragraph about Adam, the 2nd paragraph about Muhammad, and then the 3rd paragraph about any of the other 3. Now, what's worthwhile noting, especially if you're doing this alongside, as part of your course alongside Christianity, is that the prophets generally have similar stories. Be very careful, however, about Isa. Isa in Islam is not, or Jesus is not the son of God. Okay, in terms of key terms, whilst it might look better generally if you use the Arabic versions of the prophets' names, you can also, if you find it easier to remember them, just refer to them as Jesus, Abraham, Moses, and David. Okay, you won't necessarily be marked out. So you've got the structure there, 3 paragraphs plus the conclusion. I always get asked, sir, how do you structure a conclusion? I would say A, B, C, D. What does that stand for? So firstly, what is your argument? Okay, and then put because. Now, this doesn't need to be 2 separate sentences. They can flow into the same sentence. Because. Offer the counter, and then you give your final decision. Okay, this can really probably be done in anywhere between 2 to 3 sentences. Nothing too crazy. Okay, but the reason this is important is because you're asked as part of the mark scheme to give judgments. Okay, you're asked to give judgment. So it's really important that that in conclusion is added so that you hit that element of the mark scheme. So there you have it. You've got the idea, in terms of mark scheme, you're able to discuss or identify key beliefs, refer to sources of wisdom and authority. You're able to explain and analyze and also evaluate and also provide judgments. Okay, couple tricks. We've already spoken about the 3 mark cap if you don't include a second or an alternative view. What you want to make sure is that after your first paragraph, the second paragraph starts with any of the following. However, on the other hand, an alternative view could be basically any, in contrast, basically any sentence starters that basically make it really obvious to the examiner that you are giving a different view to the one explored in the first paragraph. Okay, so make sure that that happens in your second paragraph. Cool. So there you have the structure for your 50 mark question. Now, what examiners often say, not just in religious studies papers, but also in other exams, is that students who typically plan their answer usually get higher marks. And examiners can see it. You won't get any marks for this, but it does play off in and how you answer the question, because the structure is clear. It's easy for the examiner to find those marks, and therefore it's easy for them to give you the higher levels for your answer. So there we have it. So you got a 15 marker there. Now, what I want to pay notice to, and we'll come back to this later, is some of the links between the questions. Now, this particular question is about prophets. So here, I'm just going to divide this quickly just to show you something. So we have Islamic beliefs here, and we have Islamic practices here. So already we've got prophets. So we've got prophets. Now, as we look through that first section, we've got Tawheed. So this would be in reference to the 6 articles and 5 roots. Okay, in terms of key beliefs. So we've got 6 articles and 5 roots. Beliefs about angels. Same again. Okay, so we're 2 for 2. And by the way, prophets is also part of these 6 articles and 5 roots. Explain Muslims' beliefs about the nature and purpose of hell. Once again, 6 articles, 5 roots. So we're 3 for 3. And like I already mentioned, prophethood is also about, can also be found in key beliefs for both Sunnis and Shias when it comes to the 5 articles and the 5 roots. Okay, so I say that generally so that you understand the links between the questions. If you were lucky enough to have revised the 5 articles and the 6 articles and the 5 roots, you would have been able to answer most, if not all, of those questions in that first section of the exam. So you've got the 6 articles, 5 roots. I'd also add there nature of God according to Islam. Nature of God. Okay, so we have that there. Now we're talking about in terms of what you will do next. I would then go to the 8 marker. Now the 8 marker structure is 2, what, how, why, 1 paragraphs. Now why 1, just so that we're clear, is where you explain. Okay, slash analyze. So what we would do here, what is the belief? And then afterwards, why is this, once again, either why is this meaningful? Pick your choice. Important, etc. But you're asking, like, what is this? Oh, sorry, that is a lie from the pits of hell. There we go. No, the how is always a reference to a source of wisdom and authority. Forgive me. So why is it? Yeah, so we've got the Quran. I'll put TQ there, or the Hadiths, right? Just to reiterate, because I didn't bring this up, you can paraphrase this. Okay, so it doesn't need to be an exact reference in terms of surah from the Quran, especially. You can simply paraphrase. What I would make sure you do, however, is state the source that you're referring to. So for example, say in the Quran it says, or in the Hadith it says, give the source and then give your paraphrase. Okay, make sure it is correct. Examiners will know which ones are not. Okay, don't try to slide in ones from the Bible or any fancy quotes that you think make sense. Make sure you give a really good and relatively specific paraphrase to the source of wisdom that you are using as evidence. It's the explanation, however, where you explain why something is important, why it's important or relevant, meaningful. Any of those will do. You do that twice and you get out of Dodge. Okay, so that is for the 8 marker. Now, just to once again bulb it, explain. So we're being told to explain Muslims' beliefs about the nature and purpose of hell. So basically, what is hell like and why does hell exist? And what you could do is, once again, you structure your paragraphs. You could talk about the nature for paragraph 1 and the purpose for paragraph 2. Okay, so you've got your 2 paragraphs there, nature and purpose of hell. Good. So 2 paragraphs there. 5 marker, what you're looking for here, we'll bulb it first. So we're being asked to describe Muslims' beliefs about angels. Now this is specifically about the Sunni belief of Malaika. Okay, so what we're doing here is 2 paragraphs. So we want what, how, why 1, and then what plus either how or why. Okay, you can do what, how, why twice, it's up to you, but time is of the essence in this exam. Okay, now what you want to be really mindful of is that the level of detail in the description is what gets you the marks, right? The level of detail, the final mark will come from the source of wisdom. Okay, in terms of it will ask you as part of the mark scheme that they should generally refer to a source of wisdom and authority if they want to get those high level marks in this answer. So we've got that there. And then for Tawheed, now what you can do, and what I will always recommend, is make sure that for each unit in both the Christianity, the Islam, and the philosophy paper, there's generally 8 key terms that you'll need to refer to. Revise those, quiz yourselves. Most of the time, they make up some of the questions for the 2 mark questions, right? So key terms, revise. It's usually 8. Revise 8 key terms per unit, right? Good. The reason I say this is the definition, according to the exam board, is usually enough to get you both marks. Okay, if you forget that, an example is always wonderful to help, right? An example or source of wisdom and authority. Okay, so there you go. Right, now when I say example, for example, source of wisdom and authority, you could add the reference from the Quran where it says that he is one God, one eternal God. Okay, and that obviously refers to the oneness of God. Oneness, not just that there is only one God, the oneness of God, which is very different to this idea about the Trinity in Christianity, where God is three co-eternal persons in one. Okay, so make sure you really quiz yourself when you revise those key terms. If we look at the one for practices, Ummah, okay, that community of Muslims across the world. All right, so we've got that there. So as we look at practices now, let's take a look. We've got the key term there. This one would refer generally to worship, Islamic worship. Now that would usually fall under 5 pillars and the 10 acts. Okay, so 5 pillars and 10 acts. Okay, so we've got the 5 pillars, 10 acts. We've got festivals here. Remember the 2 Eids and the Shura. So we've got 2 Eids and the Shura. This one would refer to one of the 10 obligatory acts. So we've got that there again. And we've got pilgrimage, being the best way for Muslims to show their faith. Once again, we'll just bulb this quickly. So being asked to discuss and consider more than one point of view, pilgrimage, showing their faith. Now, the obvious structure for this one, we want 3 paragraphs plus a conclusion. Okay, the obvious one, we'll do pilgrimage. Okay, then you could refer to any of the others. Now, once again, we're looking for links, right? We're looking for links in the exam. So it could be literally any of the other, for these two, any other of the 5 pillars, 5 Ps, or 10 acts. Any of the others, just 2 from any of those combinations, okay? And then the conclusion, which once again is A, B, C, A, B, C, D. Argument, because, counter, and the final decision. Okay, so there you have it, your plan. What, how, why one, why two. Now, the slightly main difference for this one is that in the how section, for this part of the exam, whilst you can still refer to sources of wisdom and authority, what you can also do is add further detail about that particular practice. Okay, so let's say, for example, as we talk about pilgrimage, you might say that Muslims might go on a pilgrimage to get closer to God, as it's basically they've been told to by Muhammad. Right? What you might do is in terms of the how section, explain what they do throughout that pilgrimage, whether it's throwing stones, whether it is at the 2 pillars, whether it is traveling between Marwa and Safa, the 2 mountains, whether it might be the garments that they wear in terms of wearing all white. All of these things, basically, you might use in reference to how they show devotion to God and their attempts to get closer to Him. Okay, so you can add further detail in the practices section, by the way, in the how section of your 50-mark answers. So you've got that there. Good. Oh, keep still. Right. Once again, what, how, why one. You want 2 paragraphs. Okay. What, how, why one. What and how, or why. Okay, so 2 paragraphs there, and then either A, we'll call it a pure definition, and if you really want to secure the answer, you add a how or why. But I would usually go with a how. Okay. Yeah, so what plus or y, one of them two, just one. Okay, and so there you have it. So you have your structure for each of the questions. Okay, you've got the links there in terms of sort of what are the main things to revise. So 6 articles, 5 roots, nature of God, worship, 5 pillars, 10 acts, and the festivals. Okay, so there you have it. We've gone through the exam. We've looked at sort of what you should do in terms of the links, some of the caps, the structures for each of the answers. Feel free to leave a message in the comments if there are further things that you would like me to go over when it comes to, if not just the Islam paper, but more specifically just how to approach the paper in general. Last tip before I forget, in terms of the approach, what you want to do, and I've given videos before in this. First approach, 50 mark first. So those are always the D questions, then the C questions, then the B questions, and the A questions. If you are struggling with this particular method, then do this one, which is to start with the A question first, get a key term under your belt, into your head, and then go to the D question, the C question, and the B question. So do it in that order. All right. On that note, good luck and God bless.